Welcome to the $1 Million Nonprofit Podcast. I'm Tom Kelly, your nonprofit catalyst. As the founder of Charity Auctions Today and Donor Books, I've spent almost 2 decades helping organizations like yours break through fundraising barriers, engage communities on a deeper level, and accelerate meaningful growth. In this podcast, along with my incredible guests, we'll uncover transformational ideas, tackle challenges head-on, and share insider strategies that you won't find anywhere else. Each episode is designed to take your nonprofit to the $1 million mark and beyond, because impact doesn't scale by chance, it scales by choice. So let's get started. In today's episode, we're breaking down the often misunderstood role of nonprofit boards in fundraising with Kerri Mollard, CEO of Mollard Consulting. Kerri shares some great insights on how boards can get involved in fundraising without the pressure of direct solicitation. She explains the key differences between board giving and fundraising, and how to ensure every board member is contributing, whether it's financially or by engaging and thanking donors. We'll also cover practical tips for building a strong culture of giving and engagement within your board, why 100% board participation is essential, and how to set clear expectations from the beginning. Kerri brings some innovative ideas on how to measure your board's success and track the impact they're making on your fundraising efforts. If you've ever felt unsure about how to better engage your board, or if you're looking for fresh, actionable ways to boost their involvement, this episode is full of helpful insights. You won't want to miss it. Kerri, welcome to the $1 Million Nonprofit Podcast.
Thank you.
So I know we're going to be talking about the importance of boards and fundraising, and I just want to dive right into it because, a lot of people have this misconception around boards and their roles in fundraising. So how can you talk a little bit more about what should a board's role be when it comes to fundraising for your nonprofit?
Yeah, it's a great question. And thanks for having me on. And I could talk about this all day because so many nonprofits struggle with this very question that you've asked. And so I think the first misconception is let's separate out board giving from board fundraising. So first things first, every board member should be writing a personal check. You should have 100% participation on your board with them being donors. And so board giving has to be first. We will hear from nonprofit CEOs saying, oh, but my board volunteers of their time and they think their gift of time is enough. Or, my company made a $10,000 grant, so that should cover me for the year. Like bananas. No. So, right, giving of your time is what volunteers do. When you say yes to being a nonprofit board member, you're accepting legal, ethical duties, roles, and responsibilities. And that includes supporting the organization financially. So number one, I hope all of your listeners have 100% board participation in giving. All right, so that's giving. And then fundraising. Yeah, boards need to be engaged in fundraising. One of the roles and responsibilities of a nonprofit board member is ensuring financial resources. So board members actively engaged in helping secure the dollars that the equipment, the people, the resources needed for mission fulfillment is absolutely critical. But there's always fear associated with that. And so one of those misconceptions, I think, is that board members have to dial for dollars, right? Pick up the phone and call their friends and ask for money. Total misconception of what this is all about.
And, how or why do you think that some boards hesitate, like the board members hesitate to get involved in the fundraising? And, how can you kind of overcome some of those barriers when somebody just doesn't want to necessarily get involved in the fundraising aspect of it?
Yeah. Because of those misconceptions, misperceptions that fundraising equals solicitation. And so that might sound funny to your listeners because, of course, fundraising, you have to ask for money. And there's an inherent solicitation in there. But that isn't the only fundraising strategy. So what we tell our clients, and I hope your listeners can take away from this, is that there's 3 aspects of effective fundraising strategy. Ask, you have to ask for money. 2, thank. How your donors are thanked is directly attributed to if they give again and if they give more. And then engage, cultivating relationships before an ask is made, stewarding donors after they make a gift. And so asking your board members to participate in thanking and engaging donors is a powerful role for them. Donors love to hear from board members with just a thank you call, or I saw that you made a gift. I'd love to take you out for coffee to learn more about why you're committed to this mission, or hey, I'd love to tell you more about why I'm passionate about this cause. When we can ask donors to engage deeply and authentically in thanking and engaging donors, you will raise more money. But you're not asking them to do the one thing that they really don't want to do, and that is call their friends and ask for money. So let's stop. What's the definition of insanity, Tom, right? It's like repeating the same behavior and expecting a different result. For every development director who's listening to this, every executive director who's listening to this, stop asking your board members to turn over a list of their friends for solicitation purposes. They don't want to do it. But start asking them to authentically engage with your donors and say thank you to your donors. And I promise you, you'll raise more money.
Well, and I know you've worked with hundreds of nonprofits of all different sizes, and this is kind of what you kind of bring to the table when you're starting to work with them, right? Can you share some examples of how board members have successfully supported fundraising efforts with the ones that you've personally been involved with?
Yeah, absolutely. So many nonprofits will have some sort of a gala, some sort of a fundraising event or a golf outing or 5K, whatever it is. The easiest ask of a board member is buy a table to the gala, host a foursome at the golf outing, attend the 5K and raise money there. So the lowest bar, the easiest thing to do is ask board members to engage in fundraising in that way. That's easy for them. It's easy for them to ask their colleagues or their friends, and they can participate in planning those events and supporting those events, bringing people to those events. And nonprofit chief executives really value that. I mean, this is going back several months, but it was a client who had their annual gala. And she said to me, I had 2 board members who showed up and bought tables. And now, come on, we can do better than that. So asking board members to start by participating actively in those fundraising events is a real low bar and easy for them to do. So start there. Then start to get them engaged in the thanking and engaging donors and help them build more confidence in having those one-on-one conversations with donors. And as their comfort level becomes more clear and they become more confident, then bringing them with you on a solicitation, having them join you. Let the executive director make the ask, but have the board member in the room to talk about their commitment. So board members engaging in the life and health of the organization is just really critical. And if you start with those little itty bitty steps, it becomes so much more attainable and it feels less daunting to the board and to the staff.
Well, and I know when you're out there and you finally get your board to maybe engage in some fundraising, what are some like benchmarks or some metrics that the board should be tracking that can maybe assist their involvement and impact that they're trying to achieve?
Yeah, absolutely. And we love data, right? And what, Tom, what we often tell our clients is your data tells a story, a unique story about the health of your donor relationships. So obviously the first data point is, did we meet goal? What was our budget and what did we achieve? And were we on track or off track? Did you exceed the budget? Were you under? Did you just miss it by a little bit or did you miss it by a lot? If you missed it by a lot, then there has to be a bigger strategic conversation about how you're budgeting and creating fundraising goals. So the first metric, of course, is did we meet our goal? But the next 2 metrics are critically important, and far too few nonprofits calculate this. The first one is donor retention rate. The second one is average gift size. So donor retention rate means of all the donors who gave to you last year, how many of those same donors gave to you again this year? That's very different than, well, last year we had 200 donors and this year we have 150 donors, so we retained 75%. No, it isn't just number over number, it's actual people. If of those 200 people who gave to you, only 50 gave again and 150 were brand new, that's a very different story. So donor retention rate really is critical, and every board member should know what it is. And average gift size. Is your average gift $50? Is your average gift $500? Is it $5,000? When you can understand average gifts, it gives you a sense of how many donors we need to achieve the goal. If your goal is, $500,000 and your average gift is $50, it's a lot of people that you need to give you $500 or $50, right? So did we meet our goal? What's our donor retention? Are we keeping the people who are writing us checks, or are we losing too many of them? And then what's our average gift? And then you can go from there.
And when you're having your board meetings, what are some tips of like kind of laying out some of those benchmarks or those metrics per board member of saying, hey, this is kind of what we're hoping that you're going to, your participation in fundraising is going to help bring in. How do you have those conversations, and how do you kind of lay out the foundation so that it's not an awkward conversation?
Yeah. And it can be an awkward conversation. Absolutely. 100%. So we have to be careful and not finger wag at board members, right? And not be like, well, you didn't make that call. We have to be really careful because nationally, boards don't do fundraising well, right? So Board Source is the international leader in nonprofit board governance. They do research every other year called Leading with Intent, and they survey chief executives and board chairs. And for decades, the lowest scoring activity of a board is fundraising. So, right, we have to remember board members have these misconceptions. They're fearful of it. They don't understand it, and they don't want to do it. So the first thing is remember that you want to be in partnership with them. So when you're sharing data, it shouldn't be, well, you never gave us those 5 names. No, it's here's what the goal was. Here's what we did to achieve the goal. And either we're on track or off track. And here's what's left. And hey, board member, can you help us? Can you help us solve for next? So Colleen and my team, talks about every board should be made up of donors, doers, and door openers. So when you're looking at that data, hey, board member, could you open this door for us? Could you set up this meeting? And so tracking that, Tom, too, right? Like we had 8 board members help us set up meetings. That should be on the dashboard because that's a door opening activity. And we had 4 board members help us secure this one really big gift. We got this donor gave us their largest gift that they've ever given. And thank you to these 2 donors who reached out to these 2 board members who reached out to the donor to let them know why they support the organization. Hey, that was an engaging strategy that these board members helped with. So if the dashboard that you share with the board is financial goals and numbers, donor retention, average gift, but if it's also tracking relationships, 18 of our board members helped us engage 45 new donors, put that on the dashboard too and honor those efforts for this, how strategic those efforts really are.
And when you're, is there any type of, terminology or wording that maybe you add to like your donor or your board member engagement package? Like when you first bring them in at the very beginning where they're reading through everything, is there anything that you suggest adding to maybe that document so that right off the bat, like, hey, this is what they're agreeing as becoming a board member?
Absolutely. So we have a form that we created called an annual donor or annual board commitment form. So like you said, new board members coming in, they're at the orientation, or it's the first board meeting of the new fiscal year. And it's a 1-pager and it's, has the donor's name at the top. The board member's name at the top. And it says, yes, I commit to service on this board. So you're asking them to really every fiscal year renew their commitment to service on this board. And I will give a gift of X. And if they represent a company, I will ask my company to give a gift of Y. I will serve on the finance committee. I will participate in board member recruitment efforts. And I will, happily be involved in thanking donors. And I'll buy a table to the gala. And then they sign on the bottom. So at the very start of the fiscal year, you're getting their commitment. They're going to be on the finance committee. They're going to buy a table to the gala. They're going to make a gift of X. And they are going to support fundraising activities by thanking donors and recruiting board members. Fabulous. Then you're not chasing them down over the whole course of the fiscal year. What's your pledge going to be? And to your point, when they're first coming in as a new board member or at the start of the fiscal year, they have a crystal clear expectation of what they're committing to and what the expectations are. Far too often, organizations don't make the expectations clear. And in that muddiness, we have miscommunication, misperceptions, mistakes, misalignment, all those things.
Well, I also think that when you do that and you kind of make it public to the other board members of what your commitment is as a board member, of what you're going to be contributing, it also helps hold you accountable because now everybody can see what everybody else is going to be doing for the organization throughout the year. So I think that's a great way to kind of have that as an open forum to really lay it out ahead of time, because you're right. If you don't know what the expectations are, people aren't going to just assume that this is what you're expecting me to do.
Yeah, you can't hold someone accountable to expectations that weren't made clear. The other thing that organizations can do is in their budget, if you have a line item for what your goal is for individual giving, corporate giving, foundations, right, government grants, separate out board giving from the larger individual giving goal. And then when they get their monthly, the monthly financial statements, you can see, well, the board giving goal was $100,000 this year, and we're only at 27,000 of that. And so every monthly financial statement, you can see where is the organization tracking against that board giving goal. That helps to make it much clearer too.
Yeah, and it's great because it shows a lot of just transparency and where the current, what everybody committed to at the beginning, where they are throughout the year, and they can start to make their own personal financial decision. So that they know, okay, I need to allocate this much money for donations as my contribution. And I love it because it's a great way to just have that visibility at every board meeting to kind of show the update without having to say, hey, where's your money? Where's your money? Because everybody knows if you're only at 27,000 of the 100, everybody knows how much they've contributed to that, right? Maybe one person did the 27,000 and they're like, okay, I think I'm good. Now everybody else has to step up, right? But it's a great way to kind of have that transparency without having to say anything, but, actually showing where the progress is. I think it's a great idea.
Right.
So what would you suggest about we talked about some different ways that a board can contribute with the fundraising, but what about training or resources to help get them to feel more confident with fundraising, or just to kind of get them, I guess, the skill set to go out and solicit more people, or sell more tickets to the gala, or buy another table, or just something that I just kind of builds their confidence with that and kind of trains them and gives them those resources. Is there anything that you've done in the past with your clients that has really kind of made that an easy thing?
Yep. Oh, absolutely. So the first thing, and it's a great question. The first thing, I hope all of your listeners are doing an annual board retreat, right? So one day out of the year, whether it's a half day retreat or a full day retreat, where there's time set aside beyond just the business of board meetings, right? There's time set aside to talk about what are our priorities and goals, or, time set aside for training. Let's do a 2-hour training on fundraising so that we all learn more, or, dive into strategic planning conversations or succession planning conversations. So the first thing is make sure you have time once a year in the fiscal year for a board retreat. so that you can get into these conversations. So that's once a year. But throughout the year in board meetings, bringing training and education and strategic thinking into board meetings. So, we just see it all the time. Board meetings are boring. I mean, the agenda is, review the minutes from last month's meeting, last month's financial statement, executive director report out, committee report out, and then another committee report out, and then old business, and then adjourn, and like it's these one-way monologues of report out, report out, report out, and board members sit there being talked to for an hour and a half. And I don't want to go to that meeting. I doubt you want to go to that meeting. And then we get frustrated that board members are not engaged. Well, you just bored them to tears because you read, and then we did this, and then the committee did that. Like, for the love of God, that is not a meeting that's effective. So like blow it up and blow up that old school agenda. You don't have to read out loud the damn reports that can be put in writing. And so free up your board agenda to allow for time and space on dialogue, on strategic thinking, on asking questions, on doing training. Do a little mini role-playing exercise for what does it mean to talk to a donor in a stewardship way and not a solicitation way. Do a little role-playing exercise on how to make thank you phone calls so board members aren't nervous about that. Give them a little script. But you got to make good use of the time when you bring your board together in an annual retreat or in board meetings. And if you're stuck in the kind of the old orthodoxy of how those meetings are run, blow it up.
Yeah, I love that, because a lot of times they just don't know how to spice things up a little bit or change up from what they might have been doing for years.
Yeah.
And it's just the same old, boring board meeting that you're right. People are just not excited to even attend anymore.
No. And you can't blame them.
No.
Right.
No, so, it takes someone to think differently, to just kind of join the conversation and try to, just change things up. And hey, try it for one meeting. And if it doesn't go over well, then try something else at the next one. But, don't feel like you have to do the exact same thing every single time, because repetition, you might end up, just burning everybody out, and, they're not going to want to show up. So with, you've worked with a lot of nonprofits with board members and, forming boards and helping with fundraising. Would you say that the majority of the nonprofits have boards that are actively involved with fundraising, or is it less common? And why would you think that?
Yeah. So it's a good question. I think most organizations struggle with this very topic. And I think they struggle because of the fear of asking for money. I think most boards are afraid that the development director or the executive director is going to call up their friends and hit them up for money. Right? The fear and anxiety goes up when we believe that the only way to raise money is to do direct solicitation. And we forget how important those strategies are of just building relationships. And so when organizations can reframe fundraising from transactional to relational, and when organizations can show board members an easy way to engage that is still effective, it isn't just busy work by any means, that they can contribute in a meaningful, authentic way, then engagement goes through the roof. And then you can grow from there. Another way to think about it is, can you create a little mini campaign that has a time limited, beginning, a middle, and an end with a distinct goal. And then board members can rally around, okay, right now it's October, right? So November and December, what do we need to raise by year end? And get board members engaged in achieving that, which feels much more tangible than, oh my God, we have 12 months in this fiscal year, and How much do we have to raise? So do things like that to spur enthusiasm and engagement.
And we've talked about the great things of what you should be doing with your board member. What if you have a board member that just won't get on board with helping with fundraising, that gives you a lot of pushback? What would your suggestion be with that board member? Is it worth having them on to kind of keep going if they're not going to be a team player with all the other board members? Or how would you kind of handle that pushback? And what do you think is the best direction an organization should go in?
Yeah. So I think in that scenario, I would say, okay, is that board member does not want to do fundraising. They've been very clear. They want nothing to do with it. So the next question then is, but is that board member a donor? Or are they also refusing to give financially in addition to their time? So if it's the latter, if they're refusing to give a personal financial gift and refusing to help with fundraising, even if it's just thanking donors, then you have to beg the question, why are they on the board?
Mm-hmm.
And again, we have to be careful, Tom. We don't want to tell board members the only reason you're here is to help us raise money. No, that's not what I'm saying. Every board member has a role in helping helping the nonprofit ensure that they have the financial resources they need for mission fulfillment. We have to bring it back to mission. Mission is everything. Why the organization exists, the need that they're trying to meet in the community. And so if you have a board member who's not willing to write a check and is not willing to engage in fundraising, that means they're not willing to invest in the mission. If they're not willing to invest in the mission, why are they on the board? And then that conversation cannot be from the executive director to that board member. That's a power imbalance. That conversation has to be from a board member to another board member, a peer-to-peer. That kind of a conversation is totally unfair to put on the shoulders of the executive director.
Yeah, that's great advice, because I think a lot of executive directors just don't know how to even come across in a way that doesn't sound like a power struggle, right? And I love the idea of, getting another board member. And that should also be part of the, as you're, open and honest and being transparent with your board as they're coming in, maybe that could be part of the conversation of like, hey, if you see other board members that aren't holding up their end of the bargain, you guys are responsible for having those conversations, and getting our board to work in the most efficient manner. I think I love that idea. It's a great idea.
Yeah. And that's the role of the governance committee, right? The governance committee, we often refer to them as the conscience of the board, right? And it's the governance committee that should be holding each board member accountable. And yeah, we can't put that on the ED, because at the end of the day, the board hires and fires the ED, and that's not fair to them.
Mm-hmm. What's that one piece of advice that you would give a nonprofit leader who's struggling to kind of get board members involved, or even just starting to just lay out the question of, getting their board involved in fundraising? Maybe they've never done it before. They never asked for their board to be involved in it. What would be that one piece of advice for the new leader that is really just trying to get their board more involved, that they can take a quick win and start right away?
Yeah. So the quick win is getting 100% participation from the board. It's really hard to go out to external donors and ask for money if those who are closest to the mission, meaning your board members, aren't giving. So you got to start there. And if you can't get 100% participation from the board, then there's other issues at play here. And I want to be really clear. It doesn't mean that you're asking every board member to give you a $5,000 gift or a $1,000 gift. No, it can be a $25 gift, right? The goal is 100% participation. And every board member is going to have a different level of financial assets to give, right? The different kind of capacity or net worth or whatever it is that contributes to their ability to give, right? Or limits their ability to give. So it isn't about just big gifts. It's 100% participation in a meaningful way for however that board member defines personally meaningful.
Mm.
So that's it. Start there. Get that. If you can't get that, then you need to have some serious conversations with those who are refusing to make a personal gift. And then when you achieve 100% participation, use that in your solicitations when you're talking to outside donors and funders to say, I'm proud to say we have 100% participation from our board. Will you join us? Will you join us in ensuring that we have the resources that we need? And then ask board members to play a role in engaging and thanking. Don't ask them to do the thing that they don't want to do, which is a over the top focus on solicitation. They don't want to do it. So
Yeah.
meet them where they are, encourage their giving, and then encourage their engagement. And everyone will benefit from that.
Well, Kerri, we can go on and talk about this forever, right? This is such a great topic where, it's just small changes can really, increase the bottom line for your organization. And I think getting the board involved is a great way, kind of like low hanging fruit, to kind of, get the donations kind of rolling in. And so one thing I like to do, kind of wrapping up every episode, is kind of give my, notes from our conversation. These are my highlights for the day. So basically, board giving versus board fundraising. So board should be giving money, but that's the first step even before fundraising, and then they should be actively going out and helping you to solicit more fundraising dollars from other people. So don't just have or know the difference between board giving and board fundraising. Ask, think, and engage. Encourage board members to actively participate in asking for donations. Thanking the donors and engaging with the supporters. It shouldn't just come from one person in the organization, but get the whole board involved in that. Stop asking for lists of friends for solicitations, because board members don't want to do that, right?
Nope.
So stop asking them. They'll let them do that on their own. And board members should sign a commitment form, the commitment form annually. I thought that was great, of being able to kind of reaffirm their roles and their financial contributions and the commitment to the organization's mission, and have them re-sign that annually, just to kind of get it, just reaffirm it in their heads of what their responsibilities are. And then the donors, the doers, and the door openers. Which one of those three is your board member, right? And any one of those three are very valuable assets to have as a board member trait, because maybe they're not good donors, but maybe they're a great doer or a great door opener that can solicit more, bring more people in that can be bigger donors. And then I really like the setting the once a year board retreat to really have these conversations, to learn, get some training, and really just kind of, hone the skills of the board, so that, again, this isn't just a show up and have a boring board meeting. We want to kind of create an organization that has this mission that can change the world.
Yeah.
And you got to really kind of get your board involved in that whole conversation, that situation. It's just like a for-profit business. One of our biggest things is you have to think like a for-profit business if you want to grow and sustain your organization and have the biggest impact possible. And it's just same thing like, like management retreats and different things where you're pulling yourself out of the day-to-day situation, the environment, and having these conversations, having these trainings, so the ideas can flow and you can really, enhance your mission. So a lot of great tips and nuggets that you shared today, and we're going to have you back on to share more tips. But you've worked with hundreds of nonprofits and really kind of helping them to kind of put all of this stuff together. Where can people get more information about you and your company, and how can you kind of help them out?
Yeah, and great summary, by the way. That was a great wrap up. So we publish a weekly column on social media, and we publish it on LinkedIn first, and it goes out on Facebook and other channels. So, follow us on social media, so you can get our articles. We publish a monthly e-newsletter. You can sign up for our e-newsletter on our website. And you can view all of the past columns that we've written. And I should add, once a month, we have a guest columnist, and we share their thought leadership as well. So follow us on social media, sign up for our e-newsletter, and then just reach out. Don't hesitate to shoot me an email, ask me a question. We fundamentally believe in building the capacity of the nonprofit sector, which I know you do too, Tom, because at the end of the day, families and communities thrive when nonprofits are healthy and when they're highly effective. So your listeners shouldn't hesitate to reach out to us, and then follow us on social media.
Well, that's great. We'll make sure to include all your social media links in all of the descriptions below. So definitely feel free to reach out. Definitely join LinkedIn. LinkedIn is such a great vehicle to just get onto those newsletters, because it makes it easy for you to share those and get that valuable information. Kerri, thank you so much for being on the $1 Million Nonprofit Podcast. This was a great episode and a lot of great information that you were able to share today. Thank you for tuning in to the $1 Million Nonprofit Podcast. If you'd like free resources to take your nonprofit to the $1 million mark, visit realtomkelly.com/playbooks. And because I'm committed to helping nonprofits maximize their impact and reach as many people as possible, contact us at hello@realtomkelly.com to explore bringing me in to speak at your next event. And as always, I'm looking forward to sharing more transformative insights with you on our next episode.